Language is the ability to understand and open up about ideas or feelings, and not knowing how to comprehend or speak a language can create a barrier between the communication of two people. The language we speak can also define our experiences and our history, along with the outcomes of our communications and our personalities. All interviewees are examples about how communication and language can affect an everyday life in the work field.
My name is Sherry Hintz. I work for Munson in the front office of one of the ambulatory clinics.
I am a psychiatrist at 3 different places. I have a side job being on call at the hospital. I work at Addiction Treatment Services, where I do psychiatric care for those who struggle with severe addiction to the point that they are actively in treatment for their addiction that also have psychiatric comorbidities. So if someone's in treatment for opiate or alcohol use disorder and also has depression or anxiety or bipolar or schizophrenia, I take care of them there. And then my main job is taking care of patients at Community Mental Health, where we serve severely and persistently mentally ill individuals, also those with emotional and intellectual disabilities.
In the field of psychiatry, many perspectives have to be utilized in order to properly assess, diagnose, and treat a patient. For some patients who are unable to care for themselves, it would be dangerous to solely rely on their perspective. This also applies when treating patients who have addiction and eating disorders.
French is my second language, and not speaking it very often. I'll do a lot of translating in my head.
Language affects my life. I would say the language of the business or the department and some of the different terms that people outside of that subject matter don't know or aren't as familiar with is one of the big things that comes into play.
People that I take care of have less than a high school education and have limited reading and writing capabilities. But some of my patients have intellectual disabilities, and so sometimes I have to work hard to convey things to patients in terms that they understand, and also to do that in a way that makes them feel comfortable in the encounter.
Working in the department, there's different types of procedures or appointments or a lot of acronyms, and so when we have new people hired in, until they're fully kind of oriented to all of those changes in terminology, sometimes errors happen because they didn't understand maybe the differences between two things, or that two terms were meaning the same thing. So that's one way that language affects my job. I have patients who come in who don't speak English as their first language, or who have hearing deficits and might need an interpreter, either an ASL interpreter or a Russian interpreter or Spanish interpreter. So language becomes really important for us to understand what someone else's language needs are, and to be able to have the right resources on hand.
The language one speaks can also act as a gateway to culture.
But as soon as when you learn a different language, you're learning about a different people, and you tend to learn more about culture, and I think it expanded my worldview quite a bit.
Communication is essential to understanding the basis of language, and it can also help someone learn another language.
It's really important that we're able to communicate clearly, to facilitate people coming in for appointments at the right time, to making sure they've been scheduled properly, and to facilitate any scheduling changes.
Communication is very important. Additionally, there's a lot of other communication that I have with both other psychiatrists and other types of mental health clinicians, either via email or interpersonally, in terms of coordinating patient care.
While working in a customer service field, some workers may experience miscommunication, which in turn leads to disruptions.
Miscommunication does happen frequently, and it happens for a lot of different reasons. It happens because a lot of our communication ends up being verbal or oral communication, and then it relies on people remembering the details versus written communication.
In the TED Talk, The Danger of a Single Story by Chimamanda Adichie, she speaks about the danger and ignorance of only listening to one perspective. She argues that by gaining more aspects to the same story, we can better understand and appreciate our world. By only listening to one story, you only gain one stereotype of the subject. If a subject is treated like one stereotype, it becomes that stereotype. In the eyes of the majority.
In the movie The Dead Poets Society, it expresses how we can become free thinkers with language and how memory is a comprehension of a subject, whereas the subject is learning a language to form free thought. This is exampled by poems written in the movie.
Essentially, each patient encounter ends up being approximately a 1/2 to 1 page paper about what happened in that visit in order to communicate with other doctors and myself when I see them again.
It isn't, maybe it's not the memory so much as the expression of the memory.
Wow!